Hey y'all, today I'm going to show you how I turned this garage door into this exterior door with window. Let's get into it. Our house was built 40 years ago with an unfinished walkout basement that currently includes a garage door. And now I'm finishing this basement and getting ready to add a bedroom where that garage door is. Be sure to subscribe if you'd like to follow along while I finish this basement on a budget. Now listen y'all, I'm just a DIY weekend warrior. That's my disclaimer. Here's a list of tools and materials needed for the job. Most of these will be linked in the description. Pause the video here if you need to jot anything down. Just remember to turn on some elevator music to set the mood. The garage door threshold sits at an angle, of course. I'm going to add a base plate which brings this threshold to level. With Mancycle Senior's assistance, we set a 2x6 on the threshold next to a 2x4 with level, and raise the 2x4 until the level's air bubble sits center, and scribe the angle of the 2x6 on that board. Next, we take that scribed board to the table saw and match the blade to the scribed angle so that we can cut an angled base plate. We rip a 2x6 at that angle. It takes 2 passes to get all the way through the board. Now we have an angled base plate that, when attached to the threshold, will bring it up to true level. Before adding the base plate, I removed trim from around the garage door. I'm hopeful I can reuse this wood somewhere in the job. After I chop my angled plate to length, I smear that sucker with a heavy-handed coat of caulk. A thick caulk coat. Then I set it into position. Next, I cut a second 2x6 to length to be anchored on top of the angled plate. I use a hammer drill to anchor my double plate into position. With my leveled bottom plate system anchored in place, I'm ready to add 2x6 studs to the structure. Check out the schematic of the job. As you can see, I'm including stud work for an exterior door and a large window, and I've positioned the window and door to maximize the benefit of the existing structural studs. After cutting the wall studs to length, an air nailer makes short work of this business, but I make sure to wear safety gear and keep my hands clear. Apparently, a thorough coating of back sweat can speed things along nicely. Yikes! Mancycle yourself a shower after this, bro. Since I'm framing in for both a door and a window, I decide to double up king studs for extra support for each. The window is a 60 by 60 inch beast, so I cut my jack studs at 19 inches in order to set the window at my desired height and allow the recommended 60.5 to 61 inches of rough opening space for it. After anchoring the window's 2x6 base plate, I add the remaining cripple studs to maintain a 16-inch on-center spacing for the drywall that will be coming later. I've doubled up the window's base plate for added stability. Now we're ready for the OSB, which stands for Obscenely Sturdy Boards. They're like super sturdy. Per Mancycle Senior's suggestion, I air nail the OSB as a whole sheet to studs, then use my super dope battery-powered DeWalt Sawzall to remove the areas of the board sitting in the way of the window. This is so much better than trying to precision measure and cut the board before attaching it to the wall. I take a similar approach with the OSB position next to the door threshold as well. Now this width matches the width of the existing material. And now I'm ready to hang the exterior door. The extent to which this 40-year-old home is settled became evident here while leveling the door. Holy smokes, we're gonna need a few thousand shims, but we'll get it there. I've got my man Philip White here rocking this door hang with me, and he is a rock star. We'll post another video about details with installing a door, but here's a quick view of that part of the job. It's not something to rush through, as an unleveled door is the literal worst. So we take the time and do it right. Shim it up, buttercup, until the door is level and smoothly opens and closes. With shims strategically placed at anchor points, we screw this puppy into place. Long screws can be added in place of one of the shorter screws holding each of the hinges as a way to keep these anchors as minimally aesthetically invasive as possible. On the knob side of the door frame, we pull back the weather stripping and hide our anchors there. Finally, we cut off our shims even with the door frame. Now for the window. We set that 60 by 60 inch window in place and it all looks pretty good, until I notice that the nailing flange at the top of the window doesn't quite reach the header board it needs to be nailed to. Well, poopy pants. Next time I'll bring that rough opening a little tighter. To fix this dilemma, I'll need to add about 3/4 of an inch of height to the window frame. We Mancycle one of the trim boards pulled from the garage door threshold, cut it to size, and add it to the base plate below the window. Now she's a perfect fit. Oh yeah, breathe it in. Philip White, ladies and gentlemen. After screwing the window into place, some flashing tape seals the perimeter of the newly installed window and door. Now for installing a drip cap to help keep water from leaking in around the window and door trim. I cut it to size with metal shears. To install the drip cap under the siding above the door and window, I need to remove a few nails. Then I force the drip cap in behind the siding and nail it back down. Next, it's time to add trim to the exterior around the door and window. Problem is, there's about an inch of variation from top to bottom between the door jamb and the existing siding. 4 3/8 inches to 5 3/8 inches. Yowza. Cutting trim to match that would look like a carnival funhouse. So I decide to cut the siding to match the door instead. I install a set of guide boards to act as a jig to guide my skill saw. After screwing those in place, I just run the skill saw up the jig to even out the siding. Now I have the same amount of room for the trim over the entire door perimeter. After evening the siding, that leaves me 4 7/8 inches of trim to run from the door jamb and meet the siding. So I rip some 2x6s to this width and cut the top end to size with 45-degree angles. I use the air nailer to attach the top, then sides. I'm not super happy with one of the joints, but I'll fill it in and paint it later. The window needs only 3 inches of trim, so the 2x4s I pulled off the garage door trim will be perfect to Mancycle for this part of the job. I rip these with the table saw to the correct thickness, wearing some super sweet tall black socks. I'm not always looking this fashionable, but my wife loves it when I wear tall black socks with shorts, so this one's for her. I cut my 3-inch window trim boards with 45-degree angles on the ends and attach these around the perimeter of the window. With trim installed, it's time to install the siding. Luckily, the house came with some extra cedar siding when we bought it, so I had all the material I needed for this portion of the job. After adding a 2x4 nailer on the inside, I was able to attach all the siding. After realizing that the air nailer tends to crack 40-year-old wood, who knew? I switched to drilling holes and using a hammer to drive the nails, like a barbarian from archaic history. Wow, this actually took so long. I used this approach to finish the siding and add a board under the door threshold to bring it all together. Next, I seal all the joints with some exterior caulk and stain the newly added wood with leftover stain that I used a couple years ago on the rest of the house. Now I'm ready to install the doorknob. We opt for the quick set exterior knob that matches what we used on the house when we bought it a decade ago. This is a knob that allows you to set it to whatever key you want to use. A separate video will be coming out with details about installing the knob and setting the locks to the key of your choice. With knob installed, we move to the inside and insulating the spaces around the new door and window. Great Stuff spray foam insulation is super easy to use for this kind of thing. It's kind of difficult to remove from skin, so I'd suggest wearing gloves for this. Spray foam will continue to expand until it hardens, so it's suggested to spray less than 50% of the needed volume. I don't trust it, so I add a bit more than this, and oh boy, does it expand. Check this out. Apparently I overdid it a bit. Now it's frozen in a state of perpetual drippy blob. It's all good though. It's easy enough to remove the excess after it hardens. Typically a utility knife will do the job, but some of these hardened drippy blobs are a little large for that, so I use a Japanese pole saw instead. Now that the room has been sealed off from the outside, we're ready to dismantle the garage door. My handy dandy father-in-law assists with this, and pretty much anything else that I need because he's that kind of fella. The garage door hardware comes down next, along with any unneeded lumber. Interestingly, the day after our garage door threshold was sealed up, someone drove through one of our primary garage doors. I won't point any fingers, but if I did, it'd be at my daughter. The thing is, we were able to use the newly removed garage door as a replacement. We've been in this place 10 years and needed a replacement garage door literally the next day after one becomes available from the back side of the house. Moments like these remind me that we're watched over and taken care of. It doesn't quite match, but it does go up and down. Beggars can't be choosers. The last step in this transition is to add a little Quikrete to the cavity that remains in front of the new wall inside of the house. I go old school with a wheelbarrow and hoe and mix my Quikrete by hand. Again, archaic barbarian style, and add it to the open cavity to fill it in flat. And there you have it. What once was a garage door is now an exterior door and window. Next step, framing the walls. We'll see you inside. Mancycle you next time.